All right, hey everybody, Dr. Shawn Talbott here. Let me get my windows open real quick, and we're going to get going with our webinar tonight. We're going to talk about recovery from stress, recovery from exercise, recovery from sleep deprivation, recovery from life, so that we can bounce back stronger and better, and take advantage of all the things that are available to us. So let me get my chat window open. This is webinar style, like we do on these mental wellness or mental fitness webinars. So if you have questions, I love it when people bring questions. Please put them in the chat, and I'm pointing up here at an external monitor, and I'll answer your questions as we go through. So let me get my slides going and just turn the top of the hour. We're gonna do this one. Share. Beautiful. So now you should be able to see my slides. And you can see the topic for tonight is the recovery ecosystem. So when I talk about recovery, and I've been talking about recovery for a long time, I had a sport nutrition company for a number of years that was our flagship product was a recovery product. It helped people repair their muscles and joints and tendons and ligaments and things like that faster. So we sold it to a lot of endurance athletes. A lot of our customers were Ironman triathletes and ultra runners and cyclists and things like that. And it accelerated their body's ability to repair from the damage, from the stress that they were putting their bodies under. And we ended up, we ran that company for a bunch of years, and then we sold it to a bigger nutrition company. And, I'll talk about exercise as one type of stress that we need to recover from. But I've been talking about this for a long, long time. And yeah, recovery really is an ecosystem. I said, if you got my email that I sent out a couple of days ago, sort of announcing the topic of what we're going to talk about tonight, I mentioned in that email that so many people think that recovery is just doing nothing, right? Like if you exercise or you have a lot of stress or whatever it is that you're trying to bounce back from, if you just do nothing, that's the most effective way to recover, and that's actually one of the least effective ways to recover. So we're going to talk about how you can really maximize your recovery, and what I have here. Let me see right here. There's my cursor. Recharge, rebuild, rejuvenate. It's really about being able to recharge your energy levels, right? Our energy levels get depleted by all the things that we do in our lives. Recharging is bringing our energy levels back. Rebuilding is kind of what I was just describing, getting your body to repair itself better, and then rejuvenation is getting your mind to repair itself better. They are different but related pathways, and we're going to talk about how we can naturally maximize all of those so that we recover at our best so we can perform at our best. So we're going to talk about both sides of this, right? I said it's an ecosystem, and there's many, many moving parts between the breakdown side of recovery and the rebuilding side of recovery. So what we really want to try to do is balance breakdown with rebuilding. So we're going to talk about sleep deprivation, we'll talk about poor nutrition, we'll talk about chronic stress, we'll talk about excessive training. Those are probably the big ones. I think you'll be surprised when I go through all of the different places that we get broken down. There are maybe more sources of stress as a source of breakdown, than you might be aware of, right? Or you're aware of them, but you don't really think of it in the same biochemical stress way that I do. So that's kind of what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to talk about how the microbiome influences all of this. Your microbiome, if you've ever tuned into any of my other webinars about the microbiome and the gut-brain axis, you're aware that the microbiome influences our immunity, our metabolism, our inflammation, our stress, and our recovery. And because the microbiome, which is the bacteria in your gut, because it is so changeable and modifiable in a really easy way like we can change our microbiome by deciding what we're going to eat for dinner, or what we're going to eat for breakfast, right? You can change your microbiome in a positive direction or a negative direction, and so that makes it very tunable is what I was trying to think of. Very tunable, so you can tune your microbiome to be a recovery aid if you're tuning it in the right direction. Okay, so we'll talk about a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk about, this will be fun when we get to this section. We're going to talk about some of these what I call advanced techniques. When I look out across this sort of wellness sphere, especially on social media, I see people talking a lot about different kinds of saunas, cold plunging, red light therapy, massage, supplements, things like that, as ways to enhance your recovery, enhance your repair, enhance your, well, we talked about some of them last week when we talked about brain resilience, right? Being able to enhance your neuron connections and things like that, right? But you guys knew there was a but coming. But these are minor in they're effective, right? They're measurably effective, but they're minor when you compare them to some of the other things like getting adequate sleep and getting adequate physical activity and blood flow and microbiome balance and things like that. So we're going to talk about them. In fact, we have all of these, right? At Three Waves Wellness, where I run our retreats and things like that. We have a sauna, and we have a hot tub, and we have a cold plunge, and we have a red light wall, and we have massage therapists on call, and we do supplements, like we do all that kind of stuff, plus a whole bunch of things. So they are effective, but where they're effective and where they sort of get placed in your own personal plan, I think is really, really important. Okay. And at the end of this, I hope you have enough information to make a practical recovery plan for yourself. That's the objective of these weekly webinars, right? Is to talk about the science, but then talk about how we can apply that science so everybody who tunes in gets some information they can use in their everyday lives. Okay. And please stay until the end, or if you're watching this on replay, at least fast forward to the end, because I've got a surprise little gift that I want to offer everybody. But you don't get it until the last slide. Okay. So this is a slide from last week's discussion about brain resilience and the connected brain and things like that. Last week I talked about the idea that what happens in your head, right? How you feel, how you perform, how you think, how you create, all that kind of stuff, brain stuff, isn't just brain stuff. It is the brain is sort of the modulator, or the central node that's getting information from all these other parts of the body. And recovery is sort of the same thing. It's a network approach. It's a connected approach. And the more we can improve the signals that go across all those connections, the better our recovery is going to be, the more fully we're going to recover. So I talk about this in some detail in the mental fitness book. I talk about the specific herbs and the specific nutrients and amino acids and peptides and all that kind of stuff in my new book that's coming out in a couple of months. I just got the final version of Wild Medicine, so we're going through it and looking for any final typos or formatting errors or anything like that. If you would do me a favor, if you're interested in this Wild Medicine book, I think it's a really cool kind of book. It's not an encyclopedia of supplements. I've written encyclopedia style books, like reference books that are in libraries and things like that, about supplements and herbal medicine and things like that. This one is more of we're calling it a field guide, because it's very to the point. Every chapter is sort of benefit focused, right? Benefits for your heart, benefits for your brain, benefits for your gut, benefits for your focus, benefits for your energy levels and your sleep quality, and etc. And each chapter has my top 5 natural ingredients for that particular set of benefits. And then there's a bunch of sort of travel stories, like where do these ingredients come from and who grows them and how do they harvest these things, right? So it's part educational, it's part travel log. It's a different kind of book for me, so I'm really excited about it. But if you could go and pre-order it, that would be really helpful, because that helps the bookstores know how many to order and things like that. So you can pre-order it at Barnes and Noble and Amazon and Books A Million, and any place where you buy books has it on pre-order right now. So publishers love to see strong pre-order sales. So please do that if you're interested. Okay, here's another way of thinking about this recovery idea, and this comes from, I grabbed this off of James Clear's website. He's the guy who wrote the Atomic Habits book, which is a really good book that I recommend all the time for people. You can think of your recovery as your body's ability to maintain a high level of the good stuff while it's getting sort of drained away. Is a nice way of thinking about that. So sleep, nutrition, recovery. There's a whole bunch of other ones that I could put here. Is the level of that, the level of your I would call this adaptive capacity, your ability to be resilient and come back stronger, not just withstand the stress, but come back stronger from the stress, is sort of chipped away at by training, if you're an athlete, work and school, any kind of psychological stress. So I say to people all the time, you can't necessarily do anything about the stress that's out there in the world, right? The traffic jams, the work deadlines, the family issues, the politics, like all that kind of stuff that just makes us crazy. We can't necessarily change that. Sometimes we can, but what we absolutely can do is change our body's response to that. And so that's why I'll talk about cortisol, we'll talk about inflammatory markers, we'll talk about neurotransmitters, we'll talk about all that biochemistry, because once we understand that biochemistry, we can understand how to modulate it in a positive direction. And that's the kind of work that I do, right? I'm nutritional biochemistry is what my PhD is in. All this other blah 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 is probably not important for tonight's discussion, except maybe for this one right here. I'm a diplomat of the International Olympic Committee. I've done a lot of work with International Olympic Committee, U.S. Olympic Committee, U.S. Ski Team, U.S. Track and Field Association, MLS, which is Major League Soccer, the NBA, basketball players, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of times, my work in those channels is helping the athletes get a mental edge. So if you can get a mental edge, you can get a physical edge. You can win the game instead of not. Right? That's the sort of idea. The other piece is understanding this recovery ecosystem. In fact, I used to joke with some of the coaches, like the physical coaches, at the Olympic training centers, and say, hey, there's no such thing as overtraining. There's only under eating, right? Because, as a nutritionist, we're trying to get the athletes to eat the right stuff. And if they're eating the right stuff, they can handle more of a stress load. And so that's one way I want you to sort of keep in mind as we go through the slides. What we're trying to do is think of a seesaw, right? Think of a teeter-totter. We're trying to balance the load that you're under: physical stress, psychological stress, environmental stress, sleep stress, biological stress, etc., with your ability to recover from that. So sometimes we can use a positive input, like a good diet. Sometimes we can use a positive input like meditation or mindfulness. Sometimes we can use a positive impact like, light exercise instead of hard exercise. So we're going to go through all those kinds of things, but it's about balancing that input and output, or load and unload. And it all comes back to the biochemical drive underneath all of that. Okay, this is my company. I always give a little plug for the company that I run at the beginning of these webinars. We're called Three Waves. We were voted a startup of the year in 2026. We're the holistic mental fitness company, and the reason that we were voted one of the best companies is because we're bringing under one roof, one umbrella. We're bringing together a mental fitness retreat. We're bringing together a whole bunch of ways of educating people. We have a course that trains people as certified mental wellness coaches. We have an online mental fitness community where we talk every week. Well, we talk every day in our online discussion area, but we get together on calls every couple weeks, every month, that kind of thing, to sort of talk about new research and things like that. And we have a line of science-based supplements, and we have a brand new one actually that I'll say 30 seconds worth of information at the end about this new one. Hasn't even really launched yet, but it's for sleep, which is one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. This is how we do it. We do it what we do at Three Waves is we do the same thing that we do on these webinars, right? We look at what the science is, we try to understand the science at the biochemical level, and then we figure out how we can apply that science to people in a way that, first of all, helps them, and then second of all, allows them to take those learnings back to their regular lives. So when people come here, we get great testimonials for people saying like, "Oh my gosh, I feel so much better. Oh my gosh, I feel more recovered. Oh my gosh, I feel in a better mood. Oh my gosh, like I'm great." But we don't want them to be great just while they're here. We want them to learn how to do things so when they go back to their regular stressful life, they can be great back there too, right? That's the thing that we're trying to do. So it's real science, real practices, real results across this whole gut, heart, brain cascade. So that's all I'll say about that because I want to talk about recovery. So let's talk about the front side of the recovery ecosystem first, which is what is breaking us down? What do we even need to recover from in the first place? So I already said this. Stress is not the enemy, right? The stress out there in the world isn't the thing that we need to be concerned with. What we need to be concerned with is this idea of cumulative load. If we are getting too much load without enough recovery, if that teeter-totter, if that seesaw is unbalanced, when demands repeatedly exceed the body's capacity to repair and adapt, that's when something breaks. And sometimes it's something, the thing that breaks is that you, like if you're an athlete, you get a tendonitis, or you get sick, or you get burned out, or these days, like kids, young adults who are my kids' age, will use the word overwhelm, right? I see that all the time on social media that everybody is overwhelmed. In an athlete world, that would be overtraining. Or overreaching. It's the same kind of stuff that we're all going through in sort of different scenarios. So we see it in athletes, we see it in parents, we see it in workers, we see it in caregivers, we see it in first responders at a really, really high level. But we're all susceptible to that kind of thing. And the moral of the story isn't get rid of all the stress. The moral of the story is balance your stress with your recovery. In fact, a lot of the people that I end up working with are they're, I wouldn't say they're type A necessarily, but they're definitely people who want to perform at a high level, right? They don't necessarily want their stress load to go down, right? They're the kind of people who want to take on more, right? So if anything, they want to try to figure out how can I take on more projects? How can I take on more load without breaking, right? How can I increase or improve my adaptive capacity, my ability to bounce back from that stress. Okay, so it's all about that balance point. So here are a few places where we can have an input that can break us down in different ways. So physical load, that makes perfect sense, especially when we're talking about athletes. That's your workout, right? And if we balance it the right way, that little bit of a strain or high level of strain, as long as we have enough recovery from it, where we come back stronger from that, right? We come back stronger, faster, all that kind of stuff, and we don't get injured. Sleep and circadian disruption is probably the biggest problem that most people have these days, right? So literally millions of people have trouble sleeping and don't really know what to do with it, right? Or do for it. Sometimes you have trouble falling asleep. Sometimes you have trouble staying asleep, like you wake up in the night. Sometimes you sleep all the way through the night, but then your alarm goes off in the morning and you feel like you haven't gotten a minute of sleep because you're not recovered, you're not rejuvenated, you haven't repaired as efficiently as possible. You still feel exhausted. So sleep is probably like the most important one for us to talk about. We'll get more into sleep in just a little bit. Nutritional load. If you are having a processed food diet, that's a stress. The body, in certain ways, treats processed food or reacts to processed food almost like it's an infection, like a viral infection. And so we can see those signals when you eat a fast food meal. You can see those signals in the circulatory system. Well, first you see them in the gastrointestinal system, then you see them in the microbiome, then you see them in the circulatory system. So you can trace that all the way through. And what you're seeing is the immune system reacts to it, the gut lining reacts to it, the actual bacteria in the gut reacts to it, the clotting factors in the blood react to it. So if you didn't know that it was a processed food meal, you would look at it biochemically and go, huh, this person is trying to fight off a viral infection because of your body is trying to protect you in the same sort of way. So nutritional load can be a negative if you're constantly eating a processed food diet. So we'll come back to that in just a little bit. Here's a few others. Psychological load. This is the one that most people get. When most people think of recovering from stress, the stress that they're thinking of is the normal things that stress us out: work and relationship issues, rumination, something that happened and now it's psychologically it's happening again and again and again because you keep sort of revisiting it. constant digital input, lack of psychological safety, too little restorative time. A lot of us aren't very good at unplugging. So this is the one that most people get. People forget about this one though. Environmental load. Traveling is a huge toll on your body's recovery system. In fact, when I worked with all those elite level athletes, especially the U.S. ski team, one of the big problems for them was the stress of travel. Because you're up early to catch your plane, you're fighting your way through TSA, you've got connections to make, and sometimes you don't make those connections. You're in the airport where all the food is gross. You're on different time zones, so your circadian rhythm is messed up, and so that was one of the big stressors when you're traveling around as a skier, going to World Cup events, and sometimes they're in Asia, and sometimes they're in Europe, and sometimes in the United States, and it's crazy kinds of stuff. But the people who travel for work, they could go through the same sort of stuff. Pollution, extreme heat or cold, disrupted routines, another circadian rhythm sort of a thing, demanding surroundings, and then biological load. This is really where it comes down to, where we're looking at the biochemistry and we're seeing, are you getting sick? Are you getting an upper respiratory tract infection? We've actually done a bunch of studies with my research group over the years to show that people who do long distance endurance events, like marathon, for example, after a marathon, about 70% of people who complete a marathon get sick. They catch a cold in the 2 weeks after the marathon. In fact, we use that sometimes as a model system to stress people out so that we can suppress their immune system so they get sick, and then we can have an intervention to see if we can keep them from getting sick or help them get over their upper respiratory complaints faster, right? So it's such a well-known stress on the immune system that we can actually use it, to our advantage in these research settings. But part of that is because it disrupts your gut, and your gut controls a lot of what your immune system does. You can see some of the other ones here: medications, medical conditions, unresolved inflammation, individual vulnerabilities, and all of those. Right? None of those just have one of those. Very often, it's multiple inputs, multiple sources of stress load. And so you have to consider all of that. Some of the athletes that I work with, they don't take that into consideration, right? They'll think of, all right, how many hours am I on my bike? How many miles did I run? How many pounds did I lift? Right? And some of them are very diligent about tracking this kind of stuff. But what they won't think of is, well, what's going on in the home front? What's going on with my financial situation? What's going on with, if you're a student athlete, what's going on with my final exams? So like all of that has to be brought in. So anyway, you guys get the idea. And there's a comment in the chat that happened to my husband when he ran his first marathon. Yeah, it happens to me every single time I do one of these endurance events. I will, for that week or two, I'm much more likely to be snuffly and have a little bit of a cough. And if it's a big event, like when I went to Italy in April. And I ran my 100 kilometers over there, the Tuscany crossing. I thought I had dodged a bullet, right? I felt great for a couple of days after it was done, and then we got on an airplane, and then we traveled all the way from Italy back to Boston, and I was so sick. I caught I was afraid that I had COVID. I felt so bad, but I had really suppressed my immune system with the race, and then we put travel on top of that, and then etc. So that's these are the things that can break us down, and as it accumulates piece by piece by piece, if we're not bolstering that with all these recovery modalities that I'm going to get into, then we get into that place of overwhelm, and we fall behind, right? So there's things we can do to eat better, right? We can make sure we top off our glycogen levels. We can make sure that we're lowering our oxidative load, our inflammatory load, etc. So we can make sure we have a good gut barrier so we don't get leaky gut and things like that. So you can see all of them here, but it's not just one thing. I'll just say this again for effect. Sometimes people want to point to it and say, "Oh, it's the cortisol," right? Cortisol is a catabolic hormone. Not necessarily, right? I've written several entire books you can probably see back there on the shelf about cortisol. So cortisol is not the enemy. It's not this inherently harmful, toxic byproduct of your stress response. It actually does a lot of good things until we're chronically exposed to it, right? So it's not the cortisol, it's the chronic exposure. It's not the inflammation, it's the chronic low grade nature of being slightly overinflamed or slightly immune activated all the time or slightly having leaky gut, right? It's that chronic drip exposure that really accelerates. I used this word before, catabolic. That means that your body's breaking down faster than it's able to build up. So the balance between catabolic breakdown and anabolic buildup is another way that we'll sometimes describe this recovery ecosystem. So one more thing about that. So trying to notice it in yourself. Sometimes I'll work with athletes who, if they're not sore, physically like muscle sore, then they think, oh, I can go hard again today, right? It's not just that, right? It's not just that tissue stress right here. It's overall. You can still be under recovered neurologically. That's what your nervous system is doing. Metabolically, that's what things like cortisol and blood glucose and things like that are doing. Emotionally, how you're feeling. Hormonally, what's your testosterone doing, etc. Or immunologically, I talked about the immune system suppression that we see, and we see that with psychological stress too, right? When do we see on college campuses? When do we see most of the kids coming down with colds and flus? Well, during final exams, because they're stressed out about their exams. They're staying up late at night, so they're not getting sleep. They're eating crappy food, right? Everyone's sitting up, studying, eating, Doritos and Diet Coke. So, you've got nutritional stress, you've got psychological stress, you've got sleep stress. It's a perfect storm for them to be breaking down faster than they're able to build up. Okay, how do we recover from that though? How do we reset that teeter totter, right? If we have all this load of stress on top of stress on top of stress, how do we de-stress, 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 or recover, 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 repair, rejuvenate? Well, it's some combination of some of the things that I've already talked about before. And what we're trying to get, I like to think of this ecosystem as like a tree motif, right? So at the top of the tree, the canopy where the leaves are and the branches are, these are the things that we want to try to get. We want to try to increase energy levels because when we're overloaded, we're fatigued. We want to increase cognition because when we're overloaded, we're confused. That's the actual word for it when we measure it in our psychological studies. When we want to increase mood because when we're overloaded, we're depressed, right? And it's not the disease depression, which is more accurately major depressive disorder. But when you're stressed out, you might get up in the morning and just be like, I'm feeling depressed today, right? Or I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling, like when we use that terminology, we're just like describing a mood state. We're not diagnosing ourselves with major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder. It's just how we're feeling. Our training capacity, how much load can we take? Should we go hard today or should we go easy today? Tissue resilience, are we gonna work out and hurt ourselves or injure ourselves or develop a tendonitis, or are we gonna be able to absorb that strain? And then immune resilience, like I said before. So the way that we think about this is that to get all of those benefits, right? The canopy, the leaves in the tree, the trunk, the sort of like solid part of that tree is this concept that I've talked about before in other webinars that I call adaptive capacity, right? That ability to be resilient and adapt and come back stronger. This is the repair, replenish, rebuild. And where does that come from? How do we get that? Like, what's the practice that we do in order to deliver that? Well, it's these. These are the things that are usually off and leading to some of those stressors. Well, we need to focus on which one is off, and therein lies the problem, if you will. For a lot of people, especially my students who hear me talk about this, you look at this and you go, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. where the sort of like the nuance is figuring out which one to focus on, right? Because I would love everybody every day to have good nutrition and hydration. I would love somebody every day to be moving their bodies. Every day to have very good stress regulation and nervous system regulation. Every day have a good balanced, resilient, diverse microbiome and a perfect environment that is the perfect temperature and the right level of sunlight exposure and the right level of exposure to nature, and you get to walk in the grass barefoot and do some grounding and you know all that wonderful stuff. And don't forget sleep, which is at the front of this. I want everybody to have 8 hours of wonderful, high efficiency, high quality sleep every single night, right? And you can see like I'm saying this kind of tongue in cheek because I live in the same world as everybody else lives in, and that's a little like utopian. That's a little pie in the sky that we're going to be perfect on each one of these every single day, every single week, every single month of the whole year, right? It's just not going to happen. And so a lot of times what I'm educating people to do with their clients when they're coaching their clients is talk to them. Try to figure out which one of these is their primary limiter. Which one of these is most out of whack is another way of thinking about it, and focus on that one. And if you can do that, then what you end up getting is that because none of these work alone, right? They all sort of buttress each other. They support each other. So for example, movement can improve sleep. You've all experienced this before. You sleep better. We all sleep better on a night where we got some physical activity that day. And if you're a regular exerciser, you have also experienced this. If you didn't exercise today, you're probably going to have more poor sleep that night because your body is just sort of accustomed to that. So movement can improve sleep. If you get a good night's sleep, that can also support your food choices. And you've all experienced this before. You get a crummy night of sleep, and then that next day, because your cortisol level now is about 50% higher, now you're getting more cravings for junk food. Like you are hungrier. You're hungrier more for carbohydrates. You're more hungry for sugar. You are more hungry for junk food. And when you eat it, you actually preferentially store more of those calories in your midsection, right? So that's sort of a direct link between what does your sleep quality look like and what does your drive for good or bad nutrition look like the next day. Nutrition can fuel your movement. If you're eating crappy food, you're probably not likely to be motivated to go exercise. Stress regulation supports both gut health and the brain. We know that people who are chronically stressed have more gut problems, you know, that more constipation, more diarrhea, more heartburn, more indigestion and bloating and gas and all that kind of stuff. People who are more stressed out also have more confusion. They're less creative. They can't solve problems as well. They can't remember, right? So like all of that, it's all interconnected. And the idea of finding your clients or finding your own primary limiter, and I've done a whole webinar about how to do that and why that's important. Once you can find that, then some of the other ones sort of they don't resolve on their own necessarily, but they get a little bit stronger, and you can, you know, get benefit in each of those other areas. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, and I think in a lot of ways, sleep is the. Let me go back real quick. Let me look forward. Yeah, I'll come back to sleep. I think in a lot of ways, I'm going to come back and talk more about sleep in a second. Sleep for most people, most of the time, is the big thing. I have a webinar that I'm going to record sometime next week that will be about this question that I get all the time. What's more important to focus on? Diet, exercise, or sleep? And I'm going to kind of unpack that. They're all important, but they're surprisingly important for different reasons. So tune into that one next week. And if you're not subscribing to my YouTube channel, please do, because when I post something new, you get notified that there's a new video up there. Sleep is the thing that is most often off for lots of people, and solving it can have this cascade effect that helps to solve a lot of the other problems. It can solve weight problems for people. It can solve motivation problems. It can solve mood problems. It can solve so many problems because it's so biochemically impactful, I guess I'll say. If your sleep is disrupted, your cortisol is high. If your sleep is disrupted, your blood sugar is dysregulated. If your sleep is high, or if your sleep is off, your just your inflammation is changed. It's a metabolic catastrophe to be chronically sleep deprived. Okay, so I'll give you a few more points on that in just a little bit. But I want to talk about some of these fun ones to talk about, which is the advanced recovery toolbox. These are the things that they are beneficial, right? I don't want to say anything bad about them, but what I will say is that they're not replacements for any of the fundamentals that I talked about on the last slide. And that's where I think, wellness influencers kind of like they lose the plot a little bit. They're missing the forest for the trees. They're focusing on something that will give you a measurable few percent benefit, right? So here's a couple: sauna and heat. So this can be infrared saunas. This can be dry saunas. This can be steam rooms. This can be hot tubs. That heat stress, right? It's a stress, but it's a low stress, so we're better able to recover from that, if that makes sense, right? It's sometimes people will call it a hormetic effect, right? Hormesis is this idea of giving yourself a little bit of stress and then your body recovers from that. And a little bit of stress and your body recovers from that. Some phytonutrients, some plant compounds are actually hormetic nutrients, right? They're actually causing a slight stress response in our cells, but it's such a little stress response, it's easy for our cells to bounce back from that, and then the cells come back stronger, right? They're able to repair themselves and rejuvenate better, and they go through a process called autophagy where you break down dysfunctional proteins. It ends up being a really good effect. So it's a good stress, what sometimes we call a EU stress for good stress, versus a distress, which is a stress that causes problems for us. So sauna and heat are a way to induce that little bit of stress. Cold immersion is another way to do that. So we have a sauna here. We have a hot tub here. We'll encourage people to go jump in those. We also encourage them to do the exact opposite and get into a cold plunge, and spend a couple of minutes in there. They will do similar, very broadly similar in terms of inducing a little bit of a stress that your body comes back from, but they're good in slightly different ways that you can see here. Controlled stressor, not a substitute for hydration, sleep, or training. The best fit is relaxation, heat acclimatation, and cardiovascular conditioning. So this helps your body sort of go through some of the same adaptations that exercise does, which is really cool. Whereas this best fit is soreness relief and rapid readiness between events. So this is something that's really good to do if you've got, a hard ride today and a hard run tomorrow. Cold plunging in between can be really good for helping your body recover and get ready for the next thing. One place where we think it's not great for is right after weightlifting. There have been some studies that show that people who lift weights, and your main goal for lifting weights is to get your muscles to grow, what we call muscle hypertrophy. Um, if you go lift weights and then hop in the cold plunge, there's some data that suggests that it dials down your hypertrophic response. So your muscles grow less big in response to cold plunge than if you had just not done that, right? So that I think the jury is still out on that, but that's a little bit of a signal that we're seeing in some of the studies that are there. One thing that I do like to do that I recommend to almost all of our clients that come here to Three Waves is contrast bathing. So we'll have them go into the sauna or into the hot tub for certain amount of time. We'll sometimes give a little regimen. You go in here for 5 minutes in the heat, and then go in here into the cold for 2 minutes, and then do 5 minutes and 2 minutes, 5 minutes and 2 minutes, and then finish with whichever one you think is going to be good. I like people to finish with the cold. Excuse me. and then get out and let their bodies warm up naturally. That seems to leave them feeling really, really good, almost euphoric in certain ways. Um, but what I was starting to say before I started getting into these is that the benefits here are real. They're measurable, they're reproducible, but they're small in comparison to if instead of doing this, you just got better sleep quality, you'd get a huge benefit. If you were just going from being sedentary to being physically active, you'd get a huge benefit. If you went from, eating a standard American diet, processed food diet, and you started eating, the Mind diet or the Mediterranean diet or that style diet with lots of fruits and vegetables and lean proteins and healthy fats and things like that, you would get a huge benefit versus some of these you're getting a small benefit. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're not useful. It just means that they really pale in comparison to the foundation, which is what you really need to focus on first: sleep, nutrition, hydration, movement, stress regulation. I went for a massage today, right? I did a really hard run on Tuesday, and then I did an easy ride yesterday, Wednesday, and now I'm recording this on Thursday. So I went for a massage, like work out some of the stuff that's in my legs and in my upper back because I've got a big race this weekend. I'll talk about that as a personal example of my recovery pyramid in just a second. Red light therapy is one of these ones that you read about how it's miraculous all over the internet, and it's great. I love red light therapy. This PBM stands for photobiomodulation. Just the fancy way to talk about red light therapy. When that red light wavelength, and it has to be the right wave, so it has to be the right wavelength, has to be the right intensity. There's a zillion red light devices on the market now. If you're interested in getting one, you really have to be careful about getting the right wavelength and the right intensity to get the benefit, and because the benefit is that when that red light gets to your mitochondria, when it goes into your skin, right? So it has to go through your skin. It can't go through your clothing, right? So you have to really strip down to get a full body thing. When it gets to your mitochondria, it activates your mitochondria, the energy centers of your cell. But they do so much more than that, and the result can be, first of all, it's good for your skin, and that's why a lot of people use those face mask versions. But when you do a whole body version, it's helping you recover from injuries. It's helping you with energy levels. It's helping you relax. It's helping with your cellular metabolism. You just feel so good after just, a 10-minute, 15-minute session because you're activating your cells right down at the level of their energy centers. So you can, but here I have it here. It says results depend heavily on wavelength, dose, timing, device, treatment area. So do your research, and if you're interested about the one that we have here, we use a device called Juve. I don't have any like financial setup with them or anything like that. It's just I did my research, found that was the one that worked well for us, and we've got a whole wall that you stand in front of. This is sort of an interesting one. So these next two are supplements. This one, ETAS, stands for enzyme treated asparagus stem. It's asparagus, right? It's the same asparagus you can get at the grocery store. This particular species grows in Japan, and they take the stems, like the end of it, the tough end of it that you're not going to eat anyway, and do an extraction on it, and they can get a little protein out of it that activates a protein in your cells called heat shock proteins. That's what this HSP stands for. And it says 70. That's one of that we know a lot about, but there's a whole family of heat shock proteins. When you can increase the production of those heat shock proteins, that is what stimulates the process of cellular repair and cellular renewal. So this is a great way to sort of, I have some Japanese colleagues who will talk about this ETAS as like kind of having a sauna in a capsule, when you take it that way. Because in Japan, in Japanese culture, saunas and hot tubs and taking the baths is a big part of the culture, right? So that's one of the reasons that they refer to it that way, that this ETAS gives you that rejuvenation at a cellular level so that your cells can repair themselves. And then collagen peptides are also a huge thing. Lots of junky collagen on the market, but you can notice here that I say specific collagen peptides. I take a collagen product every single morning. I mix one up for my wife as well. We take a so what I mean by specific collagen peptides, we take a specific collagen peptide that are hydrolyzed in a way that we know gets to the tissues that we care about. So we take one that has three different SCPs in it, one that we know goes to the joints, one that we know goes to the bones, one that we know goes to the tendons. And that's what we care about, right? There are other ones that go to your skin. There's other ones out there, but make sure you're getting, when you choose one, that you get a specific collagen peptide, not just the cheapest collagen you can find. If it's not listed out specifically on your label, it's probably just some junky generic collagen. So, and then if you're interested in what those specific collagen peptides are, I've got a whole masterclass on that topic. So you can go find that as well. Okay, so the evidence lens here is it's okay, right? It's good. I wouldn't put these six things on here if they weren't beneficial. But just to say it one more time, the magnitude of effect you're going to get is going to be small. It's going to be, it's going to be a few percentage points versus the massive effects you're going to get if you focus on these foundational recovery modalities in the first place. Okay, but hey, if you have the bandwidth and the access, and the disposable income to go and get these, by all means. So I use every single one of these. But this is my world. This is what I do. If somebody didn't have access to all of these and they said, what's the one thing I should focus on? It'd be up here. And it might be different for everybody. For a lot of people, it's going to be sleep, but it's going to vary based on what your primary limiter is. Okay, so here's how you build your own recovery pyramid. Like all these little pyramid graphics that I draw for these webinars, it starts at the bottom. You want to reduce your recovery leaks, which is identify the things that are your biggest stressors. So like what stresses you out might be completely different than what stresses me out. Just because we have different lives, we have different personalities, we have different lifestyles, we have different careers, different family situations, right? So figuring out what is that thing that is your biggest load, so to speak, is going to be really, really important, and it's going to be really, really different. That's why my recovery plan is probably not the right recovery plan for you because you have different inputs. Restore your capacity, try to based on what is the biggest drain on your sink, so to speak. You're gonna think of a different thing to restore that. Rebuild it progressively. Remember what I said about not trying to think you need to be perfect, right? Not having the utopian perfect plan, but focus, right? Sometimes I get into arguments with people about being balanced or not. Sometimes I think balance is overrated. So if one thing, and here's the scenario for that. If there's one source of stress in your life that is predominating above all the others, focus on that. Forget about those other things. Like literally, forget about them. If your diet is usually pretty good, then don't try to make it 1% better. If you have something like sleep or physical activity or whatever that is really, really your thing, focus on that and be unbalanced in that way of focusing on that thing. And that's okay. You can be unbalanced for a period of time until you solve that, and then you can come back to balance after that. Okay. So that's what I mean by build progressively. Like focus on the thing that is causing you the biggest worry, and then you can go later. And then add selectively, right? Don't try to think that you need to do, all the things all the time, because that's gonna be another source of stress. Okay. So a couple other little bullet points here. Figure out what's draining you. Figure out which foundation piece is going to be the biggest benefit for you. What outcome are you trying to improve? So you might want to think of it in terms of, remember that tree motif that I had before. Instead of thinking about like, here's the stress and here's the way I'm going to recover, you might actually want to think about, what am I trying to get out of this? Is it that I'm confused and I can't focus? Is that what I'm trying to get? Or is it that I'm tired and not motivated to do anything? Those are completely different sets of benefits. They're somewhat related to each other, I guess, but you could focus on like what's the benefit I'm trying to get and then sort of drill it down from there and say, "Oh, if it's this, then my recovery modality is better nutrition and that's going to help with my stressor, which is processed food." Right. So you could do it bottom up as I'm showing you right now, or you could do it top down, which is sort of benefits focused. Okay, if you will. And then how will you know if your plan is working? Are you feeling better? Are you getting more of that benefit? Is your brain fog going away? Is your irritability going away? Is your mood coming back? Is your motivation coming back? Is your ability to handle stress coming back? Those sorts of things. Okay. I want to say one quick word. I was going to do this for effect, and I just didn't. So I have her on right now, my Whoop band, right? My little heart rate variability tracker. I was going to put on my Aura Ring and my Apple Watch so I could come down and, be all blingy and show you all the devices that I use to track all my stuff. And then, in my race this weekend, I'm going to take off my Apple Watch and I'm going to put on a different GPS watch made by a company called Sunto, because it has better battery life for the race that I'm going to do. So I track all this stuff in all kinds of different ways. But I'm a little conflicted with all the tracking and all the measuring and all the monitoring because sometimes it just doesn't jive with what the person, me, or you, or your client is feeling. And so I think this is a really important reminder for all of us, whether you're a coach or whether you're a clinician or whether you're just doing this for yourself. Monitor the person, not just the device. Um, you know, when I wake up in the morning and I can check on my phone and I can see like what my recovery index is or what my heart rate variability is or what my resilience score is or that kind of stuff, that's great. But I should also ask myself simple questions like, how do I feel when I get up in the morning? Am I groggy? Does it take me an hour to get going, or am I up and ready to go? What does my mood look like? What does my motivation look like? How do I feel? Not just how many minutes of REM did I get based on my app, but how do I feel my overall sleep quality was? What does my appetite look like? Am I craving carbohydrates? Am I craving proteins? Am I not really hungry at all? Um, Am I sore? When I go out running, how do my legs feel? How does my breathing feel? How does my heart rate feel? All that, like getting back in tune with our body and listening to the signals of our body, I think is one of the very underappreciated these days because of all the measurement devices. One of the modalities that we have here at Three Waves is something called a dry float bed. Um, I don't know if anybody who's watching right now has ever done a float tank where you strip down, you get into this bath of Epsom salts, and you float there, and it has a big cover that goes over you, so like you're in a sensory deprivation experience. And what you're supposed to do is so we have a version of that where you don't have to strip down, you don't have to get wet, you stay dry, but you get the same sort of feeling, right? Of being weightless and being floating and not we put a mask on people and we have headphones and things like that. So you get a sensory deprivation experience. What you're supposed to be practicing is something called proprioception, listening to your body sounds, listening to your heart rate, listening to your blood flow, listening to your breathing rate and all the sounds that your body makes just sort of naturally. And it's for some people love it. Like I love it. For some people, it is really, really disconcerting. They don't like it at all. And it's usually in people who are not very in tune with listening to their bodies. And that is a skill that I think everybody has to get better at. Even if you're okay at it, you can always get better at it, because then if you get better at it, then you're better able to notice these stressors. You're able to notice when your load it starts creeping up, whether it's a psychological load or a biological load or a physical load. You're more able to notice that when something is stressing you out more, and you're able to notice more if you're able to balance that, right? You're sort of more in tune. So a lot of the athletes that I have worked with in my past life, that was the thing that they were actually really, really good at. They'd be able to say, hey coach, this is sort of what I'm feeling, experiencing. Being a coach is, with an athlete is the same thing as being a coach with a client. You have to talk to them and listen and ask them questions and talk about helping them get granular in what they're explaining, right? Are they really just tired, or are they irritable, or are they stressed out? Or are they really tired, right? They really might be like sleep deprived, and then you can help them solve that. Okay. So here's what I put this down here, closing message. I really want to emphasize this, which is recovery is not something we earn after exhaustion. It's a biological process that turns challenge into adaptation. We get better when we're recovering. That is not something that most people have an appreciation for. So many people that I work with think that they get better by going harder, right? By taking on more projects, by doing more, by helping more people, by training more. It's not about more. It's about more to a point. But when you get to that tipping point where you do a little bit more and you break because you haven't balanced that with these recovery modalities that I've been talking about, that's when we get into trouble. Our bodies repair when we're sleeping. Our bodies recover when we're able to balance the stress and the resilience, right? So it's not just about doing more, it's about recovering better and more fully and more efficiently from the stress that we're under. So it's challenge, recover, adapt, repeat. And when you repeat that, you get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So I'm going to give you a really quick little personal example of just my last week. So my daughter was here visiting over the weekend, right? So she was here last Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And so I didn't want to go for a 2 hour bike ride or an hour run or, go to the gym or any of that kind of stuff. So I didn't do anything. I just hung out. We ate more food than we should have. We ate the wrong kinds of food because we went and got, cake and beer and lobsters and all that kind of stuff. So on Tuesday, I went for a long, hard run. I really overdid it. Like I overreached on Tuesday. And so on that day, I made sure that I was hydrating, I was getting my electrolytes, I was replacing my carbohydrates, I was lowering my inflammation, all that kind of stuff. On Wednesday, I went for an easy ride. So this is a way that we're using light activity to help work out some of the damage that I did on Tuesday. On Thursday, which is today, I got a massage and did my normal stressful work, getting ready for the webinar and writing a blog and filming a couple of videos and things like that. Tomorrow, I'm going to drive from Massachusetts up to Vermont, about a 4 hour drive. Along the way, I'm going to have to stop and stretch and hydrate and dehydrate, pee, do all that kind of stuff. But that's going to be sort of a, recovery down sort of a day. But I won't be working out. I'll be focusing on getting my nutrition, getting my hydration, making sure that I'm all set for my equipment and things like that. Saturday is a big ride. It's a 4.5 hour probably gravel bike ride. Sunday is a 15-mile gravel trail run, and then Monday I'm gonna sleep in and use sleep and recovery as a way to help my body adapt to the stressors of those days. So none of that's perfect, right? And none of that on any of those days did I do all of the recovery modalities that I talked about in the first part of this webinar. I did some of them, and I did some of them more and in a focused way on one day versus another day based on the particular load of stress that I had that day. So that gives you an idea of like how you sort of, balance it and tweak it and customize it based on the individual, but also based on the day, based on the input, based on the, timing and, things like that. Okay. So it really is this sort of back and forth. Here's the gift. I'm glad that you guys stayed until the end. Our new sleep product literally just arrived to us yesterday. So it hasn't even launched yet. This is a product I'm really, really proud of. It took me a long time to formulate this. It's called Zephyr. It is, well, you can see the picture on the screen. It's a little stick pack that has five of the top sleep ingredients that I've ever seen, right? All very, very research substantiated. It's got a lime peel extract in here that helps with um, winding down and relaxing. It has a corngrass extract that helps with sleep quality. It has a really unique probiotic strain that helps your body produce GABA naturally. GABA is the body's primary relaxing neurotransmitter, so it can help you wind down, but it can also help you de-stress. What else has it got in here? Oh, it's got a patented blend of glycine, which is an amino acid that helps our body cool down, along with this Ayurvedic herb called gymnema that helps us regulate blood sugar overnight. And so, what this one stick pack will do, you pour it in a glass of water. It mixes up to be a mocktail, sugar-free mocktail, melatonin-free, and it helps you fall asleep. It helps you stay asleep, and it helps gives you better sleep quality. Oh, and it has ETAS, that ETAS that I talked about, so it helps your body repair more efficiently. So you get all the things that you want with a sleep product in a yummy little mocktail. It tastes like a mojito, which is if you know, I'm not a real cocktail guy, but it tastes yummy. It's mojitos are lime mint, so you can mix it with regular water, you can mix it with bubbly water, put a couple ice cubes in there, and it's a really nice experience. So this hasn't launched yet. Like literally, we just got it, but we're doing a pre-launch special. I just put this out today. If you go here to this link, bit.ly/sleep30, and use this discount code, that'll bounce you to a sort of a hidden page at Three Waves. Um, uh, and you can put in this code, sleep30, and you'll get 30% off, right? I really want people to try this because you're going to get the best sleep of your life. We actually test marketed this at a conference called the Sports and Active Nutrition Conference. Um, and we gave the people this. We had a booth there when we were nominated as the startup star for 2026, and so I made up a bunch of these like test samples, and we gave out these unlabeled samples of Zephyr to people. And these are sport nutrition people, right? So these are hardcore customers. And we said, try this. We're going to be here for 3 days. Come down and let us know what you thought of it. And we had dozens of people coming to our booth saying, "Hey, do you have any more of those stick packs? That was the best sleep that I've ever gotten." So that right there was that we had nailed the flavor, we had nailed the efficacy, we had nailed the ingredient profile, all that kind of stuff. And then here it is. It's finally out. So the reason that this fits in perfectly with what we're talking about tonight is because sleep is one of those things that so many people have trouble with, and if we could solve that, then it would just have such a positive cascade effect across the whole rest of the whole recovery ecosystem that we talked about tonight. So go hit this website, bit.ly/sleep30. Use this discount code sleep30 when you check out, and you'll save 30%. And I think you'll really, really like it. Okay, so if you like this kind of content, if you would do me a favor and subscribe at my YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/Dr. Shawn Talbot. If you like this kind of information in general, you can visit my website, doctalbot.com. I actually have a nice blog that I put up there this morning outlining the research behind all the different ingredients in Zephyr. If you want to dive in, or if you want to dive into any of the other stuff that I talk about, mental fitness, adaptive capacity, neurobiotics that help your brain with mood and mental focus and all that kind of stuff. And then if you really want to dive in, you can join our mental fitness community. Here's a link to do that at. And we have discussions. We have, all these slides and infographics are posted up there for the people who are part of the community. We get on regular calls and things like that. So here's a few other places that you can find information. I try to make information as available as possible so people can use it in their lives. And with that, I'm going to end there. Say thank you. Stop the share so I can wave at you. And thanks a lot for joining me. And I'll see you next time. Okay, bye bye.